Hi, I'm Sifu Kuttel, and in this video we're going to be taking a detailed look at a painting from the Ming Dynasty. Now, these are prints available at swordsmansboutique.com, and they were able to send out these to me to take a closer look at, especially because it has a lot of Ming Dynasty weaponry and armor, which go along with a lot of the sword history that we've been doing on this channel. Now, in preparation for this video, I spoke a lot to Darren from the Swordsman's Boutique. He gave me a lot of resources for the history. I looked through the Wu Beizhi, and I also spoke with the Great Ming Military blog. And if you don't know anything about that, definitely check it out. I will be leaving a lot of links in the description below as far as where I found my information, as well as who I spoke to, and also where you can get these prints and others for yourself. So now, let's take a detailed look into the Battle Against Piracy, the left section. Now, let's start off with a few details about the print and actually painting itself, as I'm going to be referring to it from here on out as a painting. Now, in English, this is called the Ming Battle Against Piracy, the left section. In Chinese, it's called the Wako Tu Juan, and in Japanese, it's called the Wako Zukan. This is important as it is considered a significant piece of both Chinese and Japanese history and has led up to joint research between the National Museum of China and the Historiographical Institute in Japan. The scroll was originally imported from China to Japan in the early 20th century by an antique books dealer. It was later bought by the Historiographical Institute, and now it resides at the University of Tokyo. Researchers were able to scan the paintings with infrared photography and found that the Japanese characters for the 4th year of the Koji era were written on one of the banners on the Wako ship, which means that the painting could be dated back to the year 1588, or at least the event in the painting was in 1588. So now that we have some background on this painting, let's take a closer look to see some of the elements within. More specifically, the symbols on the flags and banners and the uniforms and what they mean. As we continue, I am going to be introducing some symbols and symbolism that people outside of China may be familiar with, but typically only associate it with philosophies like Taoism, Buddhism, and just general astrology. Actually, these symbols were used in military application to designate troops and divisions, as well as in the construction of battle formations. The symbols like the Bagua, deities, zodiac animals, constellations, and the colors of the 5 elements were very common and easily recognizable to the Chinese people, which made battlefield communications much more efficient. Another way to look at this would be like modern sports teams, where you have your team logo, colors, mascot. All of these things make it very easy to distinguish your particular team. Now take 8 teams, put them on the same field against an opponent about the equal size, maybe even bigger. Even with the different colors, you'd still be easily able to distinguish which teams are on your side, where they are, and where they're supposed to be. Back to the painting, it's clear to see the markings of the Bagua trigrams on both banners and soldiers' uniforms, which were used to delineate different divisions for marching and battle formations on the field of combat. There are 15 visible banners, and it is implied that there is one more banner that is obscured from view from behind the trees, making 16 total banners. The banners are white with red borders, with cloud pattern decorations above and below the Bagua trigrams. And there are 5 attached ribbons of different colors, most likely representing the 5 elements. Now, as each banner has a different order of colors descending, it could possibly represent some kind of division meaning as well. For this, I have 2 guesses. My first guess is that this was a good way of identifying the banner in battle if the trigram was not visible. The soldier could look at the color order and identify and verify their position in the battlefield. My second guess is that since 2 flags would have the same Bagua trigrams, perhaps this color order descending had something to do with carrying the banner in the front and as well in the back of the troops, as this was typical in Ming battle formations and banner carriers. However, that's just speculation on my behalf. I would love to know what they mean. So if you have any information on this, please chime in. On the top and bottom of the banner appear to be cloud designs. The cloud motif called Yunwen or Xiang are auspicious symbols that originated as far back as the Xiang Dynasty and are of the oldest ornamental decorations used in Chinese arts. Not only was the cloud motif popular in China, but it spread to surrounding nations and countries. Xiang oftentimes took on different appearances and shapes, mimicking other symbols or even text by itself. In the case of the 5 colored clouds, it would represent a kingdom at peace times. These white banners are not the only Bagua banners. In fact, when we look further ahead in the marching formation, we see 12 triangular banners bearing the trigrams in red circles, and were most likely used as formation guides on the battlefield. There are 8 different trigrams in the Bagua diagram, and they represent the 8 different directions. Now, in the Ming Dynasty, they used a system called the Early Heaven system, which had the trigram Qian representing south and the trigram Kun representing north. Nowadays, Qian represents northwest and Kun represents southwest in what is known as the later heaven Bagua. Each banner is hoisted upon a long spear with a particular tassel or decoration, which is a distinction of rank. The lack of tassel being the lowest rank and the most intricate decoration with feathers, horsehair, and cloth being reserved for the highest rank. We can see an example of this with the mounted general carrying a triangular banner with the spear tassel decoration including upward feathers. With multiple generals, this rank can be seen in the length of the spear itself, with longer spears representing higher rank. And that brings us to our next banner type, of which there are 2 present in this section of the scroll. It's a triangular banner with the image of a bird inside a red circle. Now, we can tell that the bearers of this banner are high-ranking not only because of their armor, but because of the long poles carrying the banners as well as the decoration atop. This type of banner is called a gate banner, or can sometimes be referred to as a gate flag. As depicted in the painting, gate banners were usually presented in pairs at the gate of a camp or a fortress, and similar to the Bagua trigrams, the image and color on the flag were used to represent a particular division and position. There were 5 different gate banners to represent the different directions: front, rear, left, right, and center, and as well positions in formation. The front position was also known as the south direction and represented by a bird in a red circle. This means that the soldiers carrying the banners with the red circles and the Bagua trigrams within were of the same troop, and the 2 men carrying the gate banners would be more high-ranking officials or even possibly generals of the front army. Other gate banner colors and animals were blue with a dragon for east, white with a tiger for west, black with a turtle for north, and yellow with a snake for center. Each animal was depicted with wings, which culturally meant upgraded, more powerful, or supercharged. Now, this is probably based on the ancient phrase 如火天翼, which means to give a tiger wings. Now, if you put wings on the vicious and most powerful king of the land beasts, you'd have a very, very formidable opponent. Now, all of the other banner animals got the same exact treatment. Another banner type that we see in this painting is the Constellation Banner. The book Wu Bei Yao Le describes 28 different banners with various constellations that were used in troop and division transport and departure queuing. As well as with other banner types, the constellation banners represented specific armies and divisions. The banner in this painting has the constellation which appears to be Gui, or ghost constellation. However, we can't really say for certain because it almost appears as if there are 2 versions of the constellation stacked up on each other. However, the red trim on the banner and the Gui constellation itself represent the direction south and the element of fire, and that corresponds with every other banner in this painting. So it is safe to assume that this actually is the ghost constellation. The final banner we see in this section of the painting is a large triangular banner with a blue trim and a red circle in the center, as well as cloud motif designs. The ornamental decoration suggests that it is a high-level ranking banner, and could also possibly be the Yingjian banner, or the banner of the division general, who could be the man in the heavy armor atop the horse. With that said, there are just some things that I couldn't find any information about, so it leaves it open to interpretation. So I'm going to speculate based on some things that we already see throughout this painting. The red circle does seem to match the rest of the red circle banners, however it lacks the bird image in the center. Upon closer inspection, there are some speckles around the center of the circle, and it could mean that there was either an existing image that has worn off over time as paint wears out, or that the speckles were an intentional pattern. We can see similar speckled circles on these banners as well, around the bird and even in smaller speckled designs on the flag themselves. So it makes it further difficult to say what the original design actually was. One more note on this particular banner, as well as the Gui Constellation Banner, as they're both hoisted on red poles. Now again, this is an area of speculation, but seeing that these are the only two banners on red poles, as every other pole in the painting is a black pole, it could lead to some significance. And again, knowing that the red is the color for the element of fire and the direction south, these could be signaling the level or a ranking. It could be a ranking distinction. As well, they are also in the front, so this could be a direct relation to the Yingjian, or the division general. Now, Ming Dynasty military rankings and symbolism is a pretty deep dive, and I'm barely scratching the surface. If you want to know more about it, I would like to point you towards the Great Ming Military blog and Patreon if you want to support their awesome work. I've actually been a patron for the last 7 years, and I am blown away with the vast amount of translations, images, and all-around knowledge presented. I'll leave a link below. But before we end this video, I do want to add a couple of interesting things that are not banner related. First is the color of headscarves. When we inspect the painting, we can see that the troops are wearing specific colored headscarves. It would be easy to think that these are just further correlated to the division, animal, Bagua, Trigram, and so on. And yes, that actually could be the case. However, most sources say that the different colored headscarves were actually more related to the troops and their weaponry, like shield and sword, spear, Gou-Dao, and this particular weapon, which I'd like to talk about more in detail. The white headscarves were not specific to the weapon itself, but more so to the people carrying the weapon. An auxiliary troop made up of an ethnic minority from the Wuling mountainous area called the Tujia. Now, the Tujia were known as very fierce warriors with very aggressive battle formations, and some of the Tujia troops, or the Tubing, were so well known for their aggressiveness they earned the nickname wolf troops. Now, the Tubing were also very well known for wearing white headscarves, as well as using Gou-Dao, as well as other weaponry. These hooked blades in the painting are called Gou-Dao, which are a type of Gu-Lian, or hook-sickle weapons, which were used in naval warfare to hook and drag the enemy's vessels, cut any lines or ties, and even used post-battle to retrieve bodies from the water. The sickle blade was mounted on a long bamboo pole, which was ideal in the water, but in contrast, it was considered unsuitable for land combat. Thus, other Gu-Lian with shorter poles made of hardwood were used instead. During the Wako invasion, the Tujia developed a very unique and interesting approach in dealing with the pirates' katanas, using wet cloths. By simply throwing the cloths at the pirates, they were able to distract as well as entangle and tie up their opponent's weapons to leave them vulnerable for attack. So although we cannot say in exact certainty that these were wolf troops or even Tubing or even Tujia people, having the white headscarves and the Gou-Dao seem to point in that direction. Okay, so that's where we're going to end it for this video, and I want to thank you so much for joining me in taking a detailed look at this painting and this print in particular from the Swordsman's Boutique. Now, I would also like to extend my thanks to Darren from the Swordsman's Boutique, as well as the Great Ming Military blog. Please go and check out their sites. I'll leave links in the description box down below, and support them and learn more about this, because I've only just scratched the surface in this video. Anyway, Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.